Welcome to Kaizen Time, part of the Blood, Sweat, and Business podcast, where we provide constant improvement to businesses through timely, actionable financial solutions. Do you want answers to your financial questions? Email us at bsp@kaizencpas.com. I'm your host, Mark Valesky. Now let's get started.
Welcome to another episode of Kaizen Time. I'm joined by Clay Hamlin, a partner here at the firm. Clay, long time. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Thanks, man.
I got a question for you.
Yep.
In your experience, what's better, to hear a great pitch or to have a great idea?
Well, I definitely prefer the great idea.
It's funny though, right? Because a great idea doesn't sound great unless it's pitched well.
Correct. That's the hard part, is oftentimes if you have two people, one with a great idea but poor communication and one with a mediocre idea and great communication, oftentimes the one with the mediocre idea but great at communicating it is the one that wins.
Absolutely.
And in business, the thing you really need to be paying attention to are the ideas that aren't necessarily being pitched so well, but are really like, that's a big, juicy idea. And oftentimes, those that listen for those sort of hidden gems, right, take that and make a great business out of it. And they can make, sometimes they make millions of dollars out of something that someone already thought of. But they just listened well and went, this person isn't pitching this thing very well, isn't telling people, the packaging and the marketing and the communication that needs to happen around it. They're not doing a very good job of it, but someone else can take that and make millions of dollars out of it because they're just better at explaining it.
You're absolutely right. And so I have two things I want to add to that. One, it's I think it was Albert Einstein who brought up that if you actually understand something, you can explain it.
Yes.
So to me, that's a confidence thing, right? If I can't explain my great business idea, even though it's exceptional, like, you go through the plans, it's exceptional, it doesn't build confidence. And therefore, are you going to get funding? Are you going to get an investor or the bank or whatever to jump on board? Because they're not certain if they can't hear it from you. And then, to go right off of what you just said, Steve Jobs wasn't the first person to come up with a tablet. Right? Microsoft had something in the works. It just wasn't packaged as well. It didn't look as nice. It wasn't in the right, I don't want to say the right shape, but like it wasn't the dimensions that were comfortable where people wanted to use them. So that is a big difference, even though it was essentially the same product.
It's interesting to me is like, I wonder how the people on Shark Tank sort of differentiate between just poor communication but a great idea versus someone that comes up there and presents a sort of mediocre idea that may or may not make them all that great any money even at all, but did a nice presentation. And the sharks have to sit there and try and, my dad used to have a phrase that said something along the lines of separate the BS from the fat meat. And so that's what they're having to do, is to sort of separate the communication style from the actual idea. So like they got to sit there, like Jobs when he first pitched the iPhone, or we're talking about him for a second. People said, why do people want like all this stuff on their phone? And he said something along the lines of, they don't know what they want yet.
Yeah.
Right. And so the sharks have to sit there and think to themselves, is this like one of those ideas that people don't know what they want yet? But boy, when we sell it, they'll realize I want this. And that, I think for a really savvy business person to really listen to your team, because they will have ideas. Your team people on your team will have ideas that you're like, that's actually a great idea. We just need to package that better. And so the key there is, how do you listen for that kind of stuff? I don't have any magic bullets for that, other than just stay open and stay quiet, I guess, a little bit. Not, I always look at this as in my role is if I talk and say, here's what I think we ought to do, everyone's like, well, that's what we're going to do.
Everyone's going to be silent, right?
But if I say, what do you think we ought to do? And then just shut up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard sometimes to do that. And
It can be.
Sometimes there's silence in the room for a while. And that is not easy.
But here's the thing that I think is really key to focus on with what you're saying is that the people doing the work have already thought about how to do it better.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Sure.
it has gone through their mind. They
Sure.
just haven't had the opportunity to vocalize it. So giving those opportunities, whether it's once a year, once a quarter, just anytime, to me is huge.
And you got to play the shark. Even though it's packaged poorly, maybe it's still a great idea.
Yeah. And all you got to do is, hey, that it may not be complete, but it's something. Maybe it's a starting point. Maybe it's requires two ideas to come together.
Right.
Going back to the iPhone, right? Mm-hmm. The iPhone is an original device, or our smartphones, but what is it? It's a computer mixed with a phone.
Correct. Yep.
They took two things that we like and then they made it mobile, which is another thing they had.
Right.
That's all. That's it. And now everyone's got one.
That is true.
So let's get back to the good idea versus a good pitch.
Yep.
You work with tons of businesses, Clay.
Yeah.
Have you heard some good, bad?
Sure. I mean, over the years, I've seen all kinds of stuff. And the things that I think you need to be very careful of is the pitch that sounds too good, right? I was pitched once and actually lost some money on a guy who was selling server space, and the return on the investment was like 12% a year.
Okay.
I never put some money in, not a lot, but I put some money in, never saw the return on that one. The guy just disappeared.
Okay.
And so you just need to sit there and think, is this something that's really too good to be true? So it actually wasn't even I put money, it was lent him money, right? Mm-hmm. And then he was going to pay a 12% interest rate on the loan. And that's where greed can get in your way, is like, oh, this is, nobody else is lending at 12%. And why am I a banker? This isn't my life. Mm-hmm. I'm not a bank. But hey, you lend this guy some money and I'll get 12%. That sounds really great. Yeah. You gotta listen for that kind of thing.
I heard that your gut instinct is almost always right in those situations. Like you can sense it, and things like your brain actually get in the way, because the more you start thinking about it, the more you start rationalizing it.
Yes. Of why this stupid idea is really a great one.
Why your first impulse of no is now you're convincing yourself yes.
Correct.
Yeah. That and for some reason in evolution that's changed us. Because again, before it was just, hey, I don't think I should go into that cave. That's probably a bad idea.
Probably a bad idea. Yeah.
Clay, as we kind of wrap up, anything else that you want to talk about with ideas and pitches and kind of the whole packaging with business?
Yeah, I guess one other thing was I read once where Charlie Munger, who used to work with Warren Buffett for a long, long time, said something along the lines of, world isn't driven by greed, it's driven by envy. And so that's another thing to watch out for, is not to think about things in terms of, well, my neighbor down the street, maybe say I'm an auto repair shop and they've got these kinds of tools and I wish I had those kind of tools. I'm going to go out and spend a ton of money to make sure I get those same kind of tools too. Or this company offers this, maybe we should offer that. Or they drive that kind of car. Even though it's super expensive and I don't have any money, I still am going to go out and get that kind of car because it's going to make me feel good. Those kinds of ideas are dangerous when you're starting to think about things from an envy standpoint, that's another time to really slow down and evaluate, is this really something I should be doing? Is this really a good idea? Is this really an idea that's going to do something? It's going to do something for my business, do something for my family, do something for my employees. Oftentimes the answer to all of those is no. And think about what's going to be good for your customers, what's going to be good for your employees, not what somebody else is doing.
Well, and to add to that, just because somebody is doing it doesn't mean that that's the right thing to do.
Correct.
Right. If I'm driving down the street and I saw somebody with square tires.
Yes.
I mean, I'm just not just envious, but like the ultimate truth is that the right thing to do for your business? It's that simple.
Yes. Or your neighbor down the street put up a great big beautiful building and are operating out of this big beautiful building. Mm-hmm. What you don't know is necessarily maybe they're just barely hanging on. Like you don't necessarily see that. All you see is this big beautiful building. And you're like, oh, I need a big beautiful building too. Sure, if you can afford it and it makes sense, fine. But not simply because somebody else has that.
And not to take this completely off track, but the simple fact is you see that awesome car that they got or whatever they did with their house. You don't see the debt. And they don't talk to you about the debt. If you ask them about it, they're like, oh yeah, I got all this great stuff. They don't talk about, oh, well, but
I'm barely scraping by.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Clay.
Thanks, Mark.
You've been listening to Kaizen Time, part of the Blood, Sweat, and Business podcast. If you like what you heard, subscribe and leave a 5-star review. This podcast has been brought to you by Kaizen CPAs Plus Advisors, providing advisory and accounting services to help you grow your business. Learn more at kaizencpas.com or email us at bsb@kaizencpas.com.